Nearly 500 years ago, Nostradamus, a great prophet and astrologer and astromancer of his day, made a prophecy. He said that at the end, or near the end, of the 20th century, there would be a great confusion upon the face of the earth, that the sky might be black with weapons and machines carrying death, but that the great effort to destroy would not succeed. Truth would come, and after the end of the 20th century, the Paraclete would come, and that was the great teacher. After the violence, there would come a beautiful and noble being, a wonderful leader, a great soul, who would bring together the peoples of the earth into the brotherhood of mankind under the tender governing of the fatherhood, motherhood of God. So that the old prophets of old prophesied the importance of this 21st century. And as it comes nearer and nearer, these children of today will be in their early 20s when this century comes.
In the words of the 32nd degree Freemason Walter Stewart, Manly Palmer Hall was Masonry's greatest philosopher. After Hall wrote the book America's Assignment with Destiny, he was made a Knight Patron of the Masonic Research Group of San Francisco in 1953, and received honorary membership into the Jewel Lodge No. 374 in 1954. In 1973, Hall was recognized as a 33rd degree Freemason, and then received the Scottish Rite's highest honor, the Grand Cross, in 1985. In his book America's Assignment with Destiny, page 109, Hall explains that the real purpose of Masonry is the utopian plan of a one-world government, he states. When evaluating the esoteric groups of this period, the most reliable guide is their acceptance of the responsibility of the Great Plan. Progress is not ordinarily for the advancement of the individual, but for the unfoldment of the universal project. The real esoteric schools still labor toward the goal of the world commonwealth. The plan remains utopian, and the disciple advancing through the grades of a legitimate initiate system is being prepared, not for personal emancipation, but as an instrument for the liberation of his fellow men. Similarly, Acharya S. writes, quote, "By realizing the cultural unity revealed behind the Christ conspiracy, however, humanity can pull together and prevent this fall to create a better world." On page 115 of the same book, Hall explains that esoteric groups like Freemasonry require their members to gain influence to promote the Great Plan, he states. The genuine esoteric associations always require the disciples prepare themselves for careers of practical service. The student was expected to attain to a state of unusual skill or proficiency in some branch of learning. He was then to practice this profession or craft as a means of extending his sphere of constructive influence. He was to teach through example, enriching his chosen vocation with the overtones of enlightened religious philosophy, thus gradually creating a significant zone of influence. He was available for whatever task the keepers of the Great Plan required.
Manly Palmer Hall, one of my very good friends, said in one of his lectures, if you can intelligently explain to an audience something about God that everyone can understand, then that proves that you don't know anything about God. Because the God that your pea brain could understand could not be the one that created the universe. The one that created all things is far, far loftier than we have given a correct view of. I feel that perhaps it would be best said that I'm a spiritualist.
So, when we finally come to the point where all of these entities have unfolded the potential which is in them, what happens? Then, according to mythology and legendary, we give birth to another race of gods, another race of divine beings that become the parents of worlds, the parents of systems, and take their place in the great hierarchy of eternal growth that goes on forever, beyond the stars, beyond the horizons, beyond the infinite, and beyond the galaxies. There is nothing. We do not know what lies beyond. We do not know the infinite good because we have not achieved the finite good as yet. But it's coming, it has to come, and in the fullness of time we will see that we are one being, flowing through time and eternity to the fulfillment of the purpose for which we were intended.
On page 511, 513 of Externalization of the Hierarchy, Alice Bailey states, "The three main channels through which the preparation for the New Age is going on might be regarded as the Church, the Masonic fraternity, and the education field. All of them are as yet in relatively static condition, and all are as yet failing to meet the need and to respond to the inner pressure. But in all of these three movements, disciples of the Great One are to be found, and they are steadily gathering momentum, and will before long enter upon their designated task. It must not be forgotten that only those souls who are on the probationary path, or the path of discipleship, will form the nucleus of the coming world religion." On page 514 she explains that instead of Christianity, the ancient mystery rites will be restored, taking over the Church, and that they are expecting this Great One, she states. There is no question, therefore, that the work to be done in familiarizing the general public with the nature of the mysteries is of paramount importance at this time. These mysteries will be restored to outer expression through the medium of the Church and the Masonic fraternity. If those groups leave off being organizations with material purpose and become organisms with living objectives, when the Great One comes with his disciples and initiates, we shall have the restoration of the mysteries and their esoteric presentation as a consequence of the first initiation.
We're going to get them in the churches to bring in this New Age, but not everybody goes to church. So we'll teach them in the fraternities, but not everybody goes to a Masonic lodge. So then the safety net for it all is education. We're in a period of what is called externalization of the hierarchy. They're taking what was done in secret 100 years ago and externalizing what was done by the hierarchy in secret into society. So the Supreme Council of 33rd Degree, their official magazine, has been known as the New Age magazine for 100 years. They've been promoting the New Age movement for a long time. In the 70s and 80s, Christians were still debating whether there was a New Age movement. And in the inside of this magazine is a page which has a very interesting quote. As stated before, God's plan in America is a non-sectarian plan. Our Constitution is non-sectarian. Our great American public schools, God's chosen schools, are non-sectarian. The great spirit behind the great nation is non-sectarian. Our great American public schools have never taken away from any child the freedom of will, freedom of spirit, or freedom of mind. That is the divine reason that great God, our King, has chosen the great American public schools to pave the way for the new race, the new religion, and the new civilization that is taking place in America. Any mother or father or guardian who is responsible for the taking away of freedom of mind, freedom of will, or freedom of spirit is the lowest criminal on this earth, because they take away from that child the God-given right to become part of God's great plan in America for the dawn of the new age of the world. They're saying, shame on you, Christian parents, for sending your kids to Christian school. You are the lowest criminal on earth.
Now, in September 1875, a Russian New Age spiritist, Satanist named Helena Blavatsky, while living in New York City, founded the Theosophical Society. Alice Bailey and Lucius Trust were all Theosophists. Theosophy and Lucius Trust are still at large to this very day, still connected with the United Nations, which I will prove in a minute. Now, Helena Blavatsky was presented with a certificate of the Masonic rite of adoption by a 33rd degree Freemason, John Yarker, in 1877, who had connections with Theodore Roos and Aleister Crowley from the Ordo Templi Orientis, or the Order of the Oriental Templars. Here is the reprint of the certificate Blavatsky received. It states, "To the glory of sublime architect of the universe, ancient and primitive rite of Masonry, derived through the charter of the Sovereign Sanctuary of America, from the Grand Council of the Grand Lodge of France, salutation on all points of the triangle, respect to the order, peace, tolerance, truth, to all illustrious and enlightened Masons throughout the world union, prosperity, friendship, fraternity. We, the thrice illustrious Sovereign Grand Master General, and we, the Sovereign Grand Conservators, 33rd and last degree,